Hi, I'm John and welcome to Half Dozen Homestead. Today's video is about geothermal. We finished installing geothermal, which I'm pretty excited about. And yeah, this video is just going to cover what we did, how we installed it, and what we hope to get out of the system. So we decided to go geothermal because we're on propane, and propane ain't cheap. The cost of heating our house, crazy. We heat 2 homes, and when we were both going on it, we were paying almost 14 grand a year in propane. Even dividing that cost in half, we're still paying through the nose. So last year, Rachel and I put a wood stove in our house, and that saved us a lot. Wood is great, and it really highlighted how much we could save, but it's labor intensive. You've got to get it here, you've got to stack it all, and then when you're ready to burn it, you got to bring it inside. That works well for us and our family, but my parents in the other home, that'd be a lot of work for them. So geothermal turned out to be the solution we went for. It's cost effective on hydro. It kills your lawn, that's the main negative, but it's not really labor intensive once you have the system in, and we can get off the propane costs. So we had a geothermal company come in, and they dug all these trenches for us. We put in 4 loops for each home. So we ran lines to my house as well. We're not installing the full geo system at this time, but if you're digging, let's just dig once. So we put in 4 lines to my house and 4 lines to my parents' house, and they're each 4-ton units that are getting installed. So that means that we have 600 feet of piping times 4 into a header, and from the header into the house. It's a little hard to explain. And you end up actually fusing it with heat.
Yeah, so it heats it up to around 500 degrees and melts it together.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
And then, so this is the header point, and then this one's gonna end up doing 4 off of here.
Yeah. Just like the same as the other one.
So what is that like clamp one that's just so that you can hold it while you've got it hot?
It's called a cold ring, so it basically lines up the depth perfectly.
Yeah.
And then so you don't heat the pipe, weaken the pipe past where it's going into the tubing.
Neat, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And then what do you do for like these guys over there? You do couplings, or do you end up just like, and the same thing, like it's a burnt, like a fused joint? And there's a whole lot of pipes that sit at around 6.5 feet deep here. And at 6.5 feet deep, the earth has a nice constant temperature. And what the system does is it uses that temperature, and it uses it to either heat or cool and get rid of the waste. So it bumps the heat up and gets rid of the cool water to go back into the ground and to get warm again, or the opposite in the summertime. So it's like an air conditioner, but more efficient, because we're not dealing with 30-degree days or hot days or cold days. So I had meant to video a ton of this project, and I started to. I put my geo weekend together and it went well, but then unfortunately something happened. On the Monday, when the guys were working trying to finish up trenching, my dad got too close to the trench, and something as simple as looking in a trench ended up going really wrong. Unfortunately, he lost his balance and he fell in, and that turned everything upside down. We had to make sure that he was okay. We were really blessed here that we were able to have the ambulance and fire department come out and get him out and get him to a hospital. He ended up hurting himself pretty good. He broke his pelvis. He broke some ribs. He also had a couple of vertebrae that he fractured. It's pretty intense. So he's got a long road of recovery ahead. accidents happen. It's part of life. So while he's got a bit of a recovery ahead of him, yeah, things went on. So the guys managed to finish installing the system that same night. And within a couple days, we actually got the whole thing up and running for my parents. So in the furnace room is where all the magic happens. And this is the big unit right here. So this is what the guys installed. And this takes the water lines that come in. They're insulated, they're just back here. And they've got circ pumps on them. And it takes that constant temperature from the earth, comes over to this giant, it's essentially a condenser unit, and it heats or cools the house depending on what we're calling for, and then it gets rid of the excess by sending it back away, back into the geothermal bed, and using that constant temperature of earth. We had an add-on put onto this unit, and what it does is it takes, whenever the unit is running, it will produce hot water. So it's not running right now, so it's not producing hot water, but when it is later on today, when it gets hotter, it'll run and it'll fill this tank with hot water. And as long as the unit runs every couple days, it'll keep this tank nice and hot, and we can utilize that hot water. As a backup, we still have that propane tank out there. And that propane tank is still giving us a backup source of heat. And as well, this tank feeds into our propane on demand. And that propane on demand is what we use if spring and fall the system's not getting used. This is a ducted system, so it's an air system. So it has a big old A coil in there in order to get the heat into the home. So we've had it been cooling for about 2 weeks now. The system's been running and it's been working really good. So no complaints. We successfully managed to make my parents' yard look like the moon or Mars. But you can see we have 8 lines here. And those 8 lines again are the 4 for my parents and 4 for my house. So everything's installed. We've got this craterous looking place for now, but that's okay. We sort of knew this when we signed up for it. Since we were trenching, we used the opportunity to add a couple extra lines. So we ran a couple poly pipes over here, and those are some new cables for my parents to have internet, and then a spare. So if we ever need more security or want to have more things like that, those pipes are in the ground and they're there. We also dug a trench down here, not very wide and not very deep, but I was able to take my conduit that you saw in the last video, and I was able to run it all the way down to the end. And that's just for a future project. But while you've got machine on site, you might as well do it. This trench we packed ourselves and got it really hard, so I don't think it'll settle too much. So we ended up putting some nice compost on top, seeding it, and putting straw on. And in 1 week, we've got grass. It's looking great. Even put a skid across so that the kids have a bridge to travel over. The goal is to make the playground area not a mud pit anymore. We wanted to get it nice and clean and ready before fall so that we're not dragging all that mud back in the house. So looks like we're pretty good. I did run out of compost for the last section, so I'm going to pick some of that up and see if I can still get it seeded this fall. And then same thing across the way here. This section was never really tamped, so it'll settle quite a bit. But I think what we're going to do is we took the big mound of dirt off top just to make it easier for accessing with the lawnmower and such. I'm going to put some compost on there and some grass seed as well, and that way it'll at least be clean between our house and my parents' house, and the kids will hopefully get a little less muddy. Are you eating the mud? Don't eat it. So this giant propane tank still isn't going anywhere. It costs about $1,500 to fill, from down to 30% up to 80, but it's still going to be our backup source of heating. So my parents have a propane fireplace and in floor that they can use as a backup source. It also does the hot water in my house and then my furnace if I am away or can't run the fireplace. So we are not totally free of propane, but we're a lot closer than we used to be. That's a recap of our geothermal system. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how it does this winter, how much we can rely on it, and just be able to utilize the heat from the ground to heat the house. We've got a bit of a minefield here for a couple years. We're going to come up with some solutions and some projects for that. But for now, it is what it is. The kids can climb around and play on the dirt. Thanks for watching Half Dozen Homestead. Hope you learned something, and we'll catch you on the next one.